So the ultimate point that I want to take this to is that the DNA phantom is the soul. And the soul, so think about it this way, right? Your soul could almost be defined as this set of 10,000 trillion photons held onto by your DNA.
Within this dimension.
Within this dimension. Your soul in this dimension could be likened to the net total of all the photons that are in the shape of your body, because they're all in all the cells of your body, so it's going to look just like you. It'll sit in this chair for a month, a whole month after we leave. If you got it really dark in here, you'd see a phantom of you and a phantom of me sitting in these chairs. So when we see bullies and this Illuminati stuff, that there is a way that whenever you get angry at someone, whenever you start hating on someone, attacking them, trying to make them feel bad, and then you see it with them crunching in, people are crunching in because a lot of light has left their DNA and there's a physical contractive reaction to that. So literally it is feeding on a soul. And so when you get angry at someone, you are feeding on them. You are taking something away from them. That's what this science actually reveals. You're taking away health, you're taking away vitality. Someone could be killed by someone else's anger. If a person is angry at you long enough and you don't defend yourself and you just keep taking it and taking it and taking it, they're literally killing your cells and living off of that.
Okay, let me add one other point to it. I have a mother-in-law, Shirley. And Shirley could never get over the loss of her son. This is what one of the drivers were to write 10 things to know before you go.
Okay.
People not being prepared, not having conversations with each other, and they have nowhere to turn. So after taking Shirley to the doctor over and over again for what appears to be heart attacks, the doctor took me to his side and he said, Daniel, she's dying from a broken heart. She cannot get over the fact that her son had passed away before her. And she's 93 years old. And that she was dying of a broken heart, which I now know is a medical term for people holding on to things, grief and bereavement and suffering, to where they're literally killing themselves, which only once again, if it's a doctor's cardiac term, that this is happening, it's only reinforcing the studies that you've been bringing forth when that's happening personally in my life. And I listen in hospice and palliative of care what their crisis was, what they never got to do, what they never got to say, or what they never defended themselves. So this goes all the way back to the absolute beauty of creation and how creation, I always feminize it, but how she brings, and you will not stop her from bringing, and then forces inner seed to control and manipulate that light and pull from us as we're trying to do our job. It's the perfect villain, good guys, bad guys story. But we are bringing awareness to that, and we are going to do something about it.
So think about how sad it is, Daniel, that so many people, if we, the laws of the universe don't force this to happen, right? But if we knew that at that exact moment that we get angry at someone, let's presume it's someone we love, because a lot of times it is, right?
It's the only time it really matters.
If you're getting angry at someone you love, if you're losing your temper, if you're trying to make them feel bad, if you're trying to make them feel afraid of you or afraid of what you're going to say next or any of that stuff, you are feeding on them. You are actually taking light out of their body, which is breaking down their cells, and they're going to have to either rejuvenate or they're going to start to have organ damage.
What Judith Orloff, the psychiatrist, calls energy vampires.
That's right. So this is no longer a subject of debate. This is a scientific, clinical, laboratory fact.
No question.
And what I'm proposing is that this is the secret of the Panoramic Life Review and why it is what it is and why it does what it does.
And why it becomes important in the creation. Way to go, David. But way to go. Come on. Listen, everybody, he tricks me. we'll go over the whole slide presentation, and we talk all week over subject matters and points of reference, okay? We do this all the time. But in the final part, he never lets me see it because it's like he likes to see my reaction to stuff. And so, once again, I commend him on positioning his position so very well to where I have to agree with him before I can even put up an argument. Wait, once again. And so let me tell every one of you, we do this because we love you. We do this because trying to create a way to create a flow that passes through us as though we were the image for that laser beam that's passing through us to put love and light in your life. And what the Panoramic Life Review does is it reinforces from the points that David has presented even more the validity of why we put it in week 2.
So I also want to say this. If the soul is like the DNA phantom, we're now seeing through things like the near-death experience that the soul might have completely different thoughts. Let's go to the slide real quick. Might have completely different thoughts than you do. And this goes right into the Panoramic Life Review. So to set this up, Danny, and before we go through the slides, we already sat down and worked out this part in advance.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, no, I didn't change anything.
You don't know, David. You
true.
don't know what you would
I do like to surprise you.
No, I get it, and I enjoy it.
But I'm manipulating you for a good cause. You know, it's all for a good cause.
Was a good one today.
It's interesting, Danny, because normally the kind of scientific discoveries that I've been putting out and I've been putting together should be discussed by groups of people who can all take it seriously and make new conclusions and develop our understanding. I don't want to be the only person that talks about this.
Right.
But nobody else is doing this but me.
I'm the one.
So this is the time that I now can sit down with somebody else and have an intelligent conversation about this and discuss this science instead of it just being me doing a monologue.
Yeah, but this is part of what the show was, and you surprising me with it. I'm on it. I understand how the body works. I can make mine get up from the dead. I understand how it works, but to see the experiments, and it gets back to light, and it gets back to the beauty of creation, and the interaction between us as human beings, and why it's so important, forgiveness and kindness, and the intentions are for good, because in the first near-death experience and the first Panoramic Life Review, I was the bully. I was the jackass. I was the horrified.
Let's get to that in just a second, but before we do, I wanted to bring in one other thing that I think is really important, okay? When you're attacking someone to get energy, you're coming out of a deficiency. You're coming out of unhealed trauma, usually from childhood, right?
Right.
Most bullies were bullied as kids, and it's not usually in adulthood that bullies become bullies. They usually are that way because of childhood trauma, right? So we have unhealed trauma from childhood, and there is a high that people get from bullying or they wouldn't do it. There is some kind of essence that people get from feeding on those who they think are weaker than them, making them feel afraid, making them say they're sorry, making them feel threatened for their lives. There is an energetic sustenance that people are drawing off of that, which actually does create an effect in the mind. It makes you feel different. It makes you feel more powerful. You do get a high off of bullying other people. And
yeah,
now
I always did.
Well, yeah, you were a bully. So,
I always did.
And what you probably,
But mine came from, I go back, mine was childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I only been bullied once in my life. You don't bully me.
Right.
And Curtis, I had to go to band in the 4th grade, and I had my little cornet, and I would go to band, and Curtis was in the 6th grade, and he would take everybody's lunch money.
Right.
Until one day my dad said, okay, I told my dad about it because I was hungry, and he said, here's what let's do. And he took one of my mother's stockings, he cut the foot out, he filled it with sand and tied it in a knot,
and
he put it in a gym sock, a thick gym sock. And he says, what you do is you wrap your hand around it, and the moment he says to give you your money, when you act like you're going to give him the money, you drop your notebook and you hit him with this. and it'll flatten out and won't leave a bruise. And he said, then you hide it in your notebook.
Wow.
Well, I did it just like that. And I walked away. Curtis never took my lunch money again. And all of a sudden I realized that the way you dealt with things is you hit it hard and you hit it fast. So I never recognized childhood trauma as the driver to be a bully until just now. I mean, I wrote about it,
Yeah.
but it just now hit me that the reaction from him not messing with me drove it as I matured into a young adult, that it was how I control the situation around me by intimidating. So I apologize to every one of you that are here that I did that to, and I'm still sending you love. But that makes a lot of sense, David.
So,
Sorry to get all personal.
Well, but think about this, right? It's coming out of a sense of personal deficiency, a sense that bullies are usually going after someone who has something that they feel like they don't have. That's because I was bullied like crazy my whole life, and it seemed, at least in school, it was very obvious that it was because I was the one that was always getting these huge high grades on everything. Whatever was getting passed back, there's a big red number at the top, and mine was always, 95 and above. And so a lot of people bullied me because I was smart, and they felt better about themselves by knocking me down, when it didn't make them more intelligent than I was.
Right.
It just made them feel better about not being as intelligent as I was.
I just want to copy your notes. I wouldn't be bullying.
That's what the smart kid would have done.
I wouldn't have been bullying you, David. I'd have been copying your notes.
That would have been wise, yes. That would have been wise. So when we think about the fact that you can add new photons into someone's body
Life.
that don't come from your photons, just by sending them loving thoughts.
Exactly.
But when someone else loves you, when someone else sends love to you, that authorizes the universe to flood your DNA with more photons than you could ever get on your own.
And you have scientifically reinforced that as a factual piece of information on this day in July in 2020. Come on, everybody. We've been through this for 3 hours to almost 4 hours to really get us focused on the power of our value, not to be frightened and not to be lied to, and to accept it. And scientifically proven to start caring and forgiving becomes the most important aspect. And as a setup for the Panoramic Life Review, it makes more sense to me now than it probably ever has.
And remember that with we talked in the first week about Art Bell and your death experience and him talking everybody through that on the radio. And you're one of the only people on Earth who had the experience of 20 million people sending you those photons at the same time.
And I could see it. I did not know he had done this, David. I called it non-local healing. It came from Larry Dawsey and the Chantilly report. But when my pain was so enormous, my head hurt so bad, I couldn't stand it. And then all of a sudden the room became silvery, and I lost focus in the sounds of the hospital because you're externally in pain. And then the pain subsided. I didn't know Art Bell had called out to everybody. That was before he got to me. I didn't know that Art had called out to everybody to send that prayer.
Oh, wow.
But let me tell you I didn't know. But what it did was, because it was East, he was on the Pacific Standard, I was on Eastern Standard. I was in South Carolina and he was in Nevada. But I had a chance to put my life in order. I could not think well enough for the pain. I could not think clear enough to put my life in order because I thought I was going to go.
Right.
Okay, and all of a sudden that calmness, the pain reduced by 75%, and I could think what I was going to tell people just in case I didn't make it. So I am thankful, and once again, it shows that you are right about the power from looking at it from a DNA point of view and photons, the value of people who supported and loved me then, just like people who do it now.
And even there's another guy, Dr. Daniel Benor, who did a meta-analysis of healing studies and found that like 69% of them had this very strong effect. I think it was 65% had a very strong effect. And this included distance healing studies where you might have a person in New York State healing a person in California, and it's only one person that does this, and that prayer actually causes them to have a much longer lifespan or to be completely healed.
Well,
So when you have 20 million people doing it,
no,
it's a phenomenal effect.
I came out of it. I made it, and they didn't have to crack my skull open and go in and burn up my brain. So it did work. But that's Dr. Larry Dawsey. Be careful what you pray for. And I'm not going to go into it this week, but the first of next week, I want to get into what I call the fourfold path, everybody. What I want to do now is let's move to the panoramic life review. So everybody stop for a moment, take a deep breath. Remember that we are now focusing 100% on how much light, and I won't use the word love, but how much light we can send to each of us and to everyone we love. Now, here's what happens when you lift out of your body and you go down the tunnel or you cross over a barrier or the blue-gray place, in whichever way. The very first thing that you're going to have, and many have it before they go down the tunnel, you have a panoramic life review. This is what this entails. You will see your entire life pass before you.
On the slide now, yeah.
You will see your entire life pass before you in a panoramic life review.
It's a it says holographic panorama.
Okay, better. It's all like it's happening at once.
Whoops.
You're going to see everything that you know, everything that's ever happened. And what's going to amaze you the most is you're going to realize you have missed absolutely nothing. You would even know how many hairs was in the nose of the doctor who pulled you from your mother. That's how acute your senses are when you come into this plane and how acute they are when you leave it.
So when you say holographic panorama, I imagine that it's the equivalent of a full halo 360-degree set of visions, right?
And you aware of every emotion and every feeling that you had through every event that's ever occurred in your life. You are reliving it in depth, holographically, ethereally, emotionally, consciously, and intentionally. You are feeling it.
Now, do you think that every mundane detail of like, okay, today I was picking up a piece of paper that was on the corner of the desk and I crumpled it up and I threw it in the waste can. Is it that detailed? Like every single thing that you did every single day?
If it was a shot to make sure you hit the trash can. Always it's about intention, David.
Right.
Always. If it was a shot to hit the trash can, it is there. You have missed nothing. The greatest thing that you learn about going back to where you came from is how much you limited yourself and how much control you put on yourself to come to this dimension to co-create, to practice being a divine being, to love, respect, support, care, build up, clean, protect, and live a paradise, or what the potential is of that. And that when you come to do it, that's the driver.
So you really see that it's an enormous shortening and reduction of your full essence to become human. It's much, much less of your total self.
And everything that you did here and why. Then you watch it from a second person point of view.
Here we go.
No problem.
Got that.
Then you watch it from a second person point of view as if you were your own best friend.
Now we got that too.
And why I say, see, way to go. And why I say that, David, is look, no matter how serious everybody thinks everything is right now, we are playful beings. There's a nature about us that is as beautiful as you were describing what DNA is going to do to capture that light. And no matter what you do, creation is going to be at work.
Right.
The divine is going to keep creating no matter what you do. And if she has to put a imitation or a phantom of that presence in place, that's what's going to happen. Well, the second person point of view gives you a chance to look at yourself from that lighthearted point of view. Oh my God, how stupid could I have been? oh, wow, way to go. That was a great job. And you go through that. This is all happening at the same time.
Right.
All happening at the same time.
And it says here, you see you looking at you like you were two friends.
Like your best friend looking over your shoulder.
So now you're aware of everything that happened to you, and there's a lot of things that probably from that perspective in the higher realms were bad decisions.
Or you thought they were.
Right. But then, from this perspective, there's forgiveness and there's compassion for that.
There was understanding of what
Right.
you did. You know, you may have done something that seemed to be horrible, but the fact that you were doing it for the right reason, or there was a greater purpose served in that happening, changes it, and you see it from a lighthearted point of view. Because what's next, David, is you
Well,
will...
hold on. Just this one part of the slide where it says some things you thought were really bad are now being seen from a different perspective.
Yeah. It's not near as bad as you thought it was, because as you would judge yourself, as opposed to the greater image or your friend judging yourself,
Right.
that wasn't bad, Daniel. That wasn't as bad. That's okay. But you see that lightheartedness, that playful nature, like two friends looking at something wrong with each other. Because then it goes to this.
Let's get the next one.
You will literally become every person that you've ever encountered. And you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. So let's take it all the way back to David's photon point of view. With David's photon point of view and how that DNA was absorbing those photons. And all the way to the last point about whether giving love or extending anger is affecting the part of creation. If you're going to be every person that you ever encounter, and you're going to feel the direct results of your interaction between each of those persons, then why are you not being loving and caring? Why are you not knowing that your effect, based on the science that David has brought forward, and me telling you from going through 4 of these things, not really refocusing yourself today? What you do is, knowing you're going to be everybody, think now about how you will manage from this moment on. How you will manage it from this moment on. Because if you know you're going to be everybody, then how do you want to feel? How do you want to know you interacted with people? And this is where you have to pay attention to why you are doing what you're doing. There should be a moment where each of us stop from this day forward, because I hope you've been breathing like I've asked you to be breathing and paying attention to your breath. But there's a moment where we stop right now, everybody, and we realize factual data, scientific data brought by David, that really reinforces the fact that kindness and caring, it's the little tiny things that you do. The smile, the opening the door, the acts of love that you expect nothing in return for, that brings you the greatest value because it's the right thing to do. Okay? So knowing that and listening to the science that's come forward, no one gets away with anything. And no one can save you from you. And this is a fair and just universe, and the harmonies and the frequencies in it that we are discovering, and the beauty of how it manifests itself physically, ethereally and physically, based on the phantom and the actual DNA experiments that David's been showing, shows us that there is that kindness place, or there is control and manipulation. I believe that today, everybody, we are there. We're in that place where our health care, which is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. When you hear the term health care, it isn't about pills. It isn't about vaccines. It's about wellness, a nature of consciousness that we are being driven not to apply to ourselves because we're afraid of breathing. Now, when it gets to that, based on what I just watched with David presenting, and I'm watching this, we have gone crazy to allow ourselves to be manipulated as the magnificent end product of a cycle of evolution in this dimension as human beings, a spiritual being in human form. So usually when I get a chance to never put it in the kind of context that David has put in context before I get to present this, It's wonderful. We are magical, creative beings.
Well, and then going back to the slide, just to get to the last thing, you said that you literally become the people that you interacted with, and then you ask yourself a question.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a Danionism.
And I think we have it here. It's Danion's Truth number 5.
No, it's not it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But we got it in the slide somewhere.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead.
This will do. Wait now.
Yeah.
I'll think for a moment, everybody. Take another deep breath, please. If you're going to see your life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama, you can watch it from a second-person point of view, and you're going to literally become every person that you ever encounter, and you're going to see how much love, hate, frustration, anxiety that you created for that person in an emotional level. Not how many times you might have hit them, but the damage that effort physically caused emotionally and ethereally. If you're going to be that, and the fact that the beings of light told me that we were the courageous ones to come to this dimension to be co-creators, to have all these distractions and all this fear-driven stuff happening around us, and yet to be co-creators, to be protectors of it and guardians of the planet and protecting the planet. We got to stop and really look if that's what we're doing, protecting the planet, and looking out and being everything that we ever come in contact with. So they said we're the heroes. Here's the question. If the divine force, or if God, or if whatever you call the creative force, could not be present in this dimension this day, then based on your actions and the panoramic life of you, what difference did you and the divine force make today? Well,
that's the key.
This is your key, everybody. And you stop.
Instead of waiting for God to show up, what if you were the God that was supposed to be there?
If God couldn't come
people?
today and God sent you in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and God make? Well, this is what I so desperately wanted this show to be about. And to be able to talk openly and someone asking questions after what you just presented. The confidence factor in the divinity of us is established in experiments that only someone as wild as you are would hunt through Russian technologies and all this stuff to bring. But it's what I love about you, David. You bring your belief systems by becoming what you're searching for. And I've watched you do it over and over. I watched your life for 20 years, where you would go and how you would act to see this and gather this information. And then to be able to put it in a place where these 4 things, you're going to be your whole, you're going to see it all pass before you, everybody. You're going to be everything. Okay, so when you know this system, and each of the slides you can go back and look at it, you have to have an identifier. You have to be able to identify who you are and what you're doing here based on the panoramic life review. Next slide.
Well, let me hit you with this, because I think this is a good thing to add in here. If you look at the Jewish mystical system of Kabbalah. And Elizabeth and I one time were getting a ride back from the airport on a Uber type of thing, and we had a guy who had actually studied in Israel to become a rabbi, and so he knew about the secret Kabbalistic teachings, and so he knew what I was talking about when I said tikkun, the shattered vessels of light. Mm-hmm. The standard Kabbalistic teaching is that your soul is like a chalice. And most of us have holes in the chalice, and as a result, the chalice can never fill above a minimum level of light strength. That you have to heal all the holes in your aura, your etheric field, in order for the chalice to fill up with enough light that you can ascend and become this glorified being. So their view of ascension is essentially closing off all the wounds, all the holes that your energy leaks out through. And this is going to get into the later modules where we talk about the Tibetan rainbow body and their practice of ascension, that when other people are sending you that hate and they're opening up a channel to suck light out of your body, they create a cord. And this is where we're going to get into cord cutting and the importance of cutting those cords so that you don't have your light actively being pulled out by people all around the world who might have known you before. You seal the wounds, you close the holes, then you have more light that your body can withstand to hold because those holes aren't letting it flow out anymore. You become stronger, you become more successful, and this is what springboards the ascension process. So as a planet, we have the negative elite trying to make you riddled with holes. Look at what's happening now. Look at how
Perfect.
everything is fear, fear, fear. It cracks your aura. It creates these holes in your aura. You don't feel trust in the divine plan. You don't feel trust in the goodness of the universe. You think bad stuff is going to happen. Oh my God, I can't stand Trump. The country's going down the tubes. Maybe if we get Biden, we'll at least have a chance that something will be different. Actually, no, sorry, even if you don't like Trump, it turns out that his administration is doing something really amazing. And once this is disclosed, this paves the way for the hologram to change, because now we have the average person understanding that there was an evil satanic group running the planet that's going to be publicly known, that they were lying to us about UFOs, they were lying to us about higher beings of consciousness. And when people realize that, the degree of trust, the degree of inspiration, the degree of belief in a higher power, the degree of hope in a positive future closes down so many of those etheric wounds that are being deliberately created through fear.
Exactly.
That now we can ascend because enough people have gotten inspired. So the whole key, the ascension formula, has always been about expose and defeat the negative. People are so excited about that happening that their energy changes, they heal these wounds, they hold more light, and that actually, we as humans affect how much light the whole planet can hold.
Empowering each other. Just what I watched.
So this is the ascension formula.
We're doing it. And while
Yeah.
we put this program together, I mean, it was exciting. It's exciting for me, David, to watch the beauty of the creative force at work in science. I know
Yeah.
Glenn really, really well
Yeah.
because I've seen him at psychotronics conferences
Sure, so have I.
and watching it. But here we are, everybody. The panoramic life of you fits into a place where identifying where we are. Okay, so the last slide I want to put up, knowing you're going to see your life pass before you, you're going to watch it from a second person point of view, you're going to literally become every person that you ever encounter, and you're going to face yourself. And if you start thinking today about good, caring, compassionate thoughts, not love, because love has to be identified in the next segment I'm going to do on the Fourfold Path, but compassionate, caring. If it's a plant that needs watering, if it's the dog needs to go out, if it's a grandmother or aunt or someone who needs calling, don't not make that action, because every single one of us will be a part of that light that you're sending to people that you care about. It's why we wanted this program the way it is, that we collectively care and send this light to each other every Sunday afternoon.
Well, I think it's time for
My
us to
last
close
slide.
out. Oh, you want to do the truths or you want to go to the
I just
meditation?
wrote number 5.
Okay, let's do it. Truth number 5. You want me to read it or do you want
I
to
want
read
you
it?
to read.
Okay, here we go. We chose to be alive at this time, at this place, and at this point in history. Never before have we had such a glorious opportunity to display our individual power and presence. Think of this. When someone gives us a gift, it is called a present. The present we have been given today is the now. This is the exact moment to truly know that we can make the difference.
That is who you
Mic
are.
drop, boom!
That's who you are. And that's what you're doing here, everybody. And thank you for spending all this time with us. And as we go to David does the meditation, as we go to the meditation, let the sound of his voice flow outward to everybody you know and care about. And let's put light in everybody's life as we guide ourselves through it, because I will not go 5 hours.
We've had that deal. We made that deal.
That's it.
All
So
right.
take a deep breath and get ready.